Hey everyone, Wags here from Eagle Dynamics, and today we'll take another look at Case 1 landings on the supercarrier using the Hornet. A Case 1 landing is defined as conditions with clouds above 3,000 feet and visibility of greater than 5 miles. In other words, this is for daytime landings in good weather conditions. It does not, though, use the automatic carrier landing data link system. To help best explain this, I've invited my friend Jar from the Virtual Stinger Squadron to lend me a hand. Let's get started.
From our mission briefing, we should know the ship's TAC-N and ICLS channels that will enable us to navigate to the supercarrier. In this mission, TAC-N is set to 71X and ICLS is set to 11. When we call inbound, the carrier will give us the ship's base recovery course, which we can then display as a course line over the TAC-N symbol on our HSI. From BRC, we can determine the reciprocal downwind heading and also the final bearing for landing. Due to the supercarrier's angled flight deck, the final bearing will be 10 degrees left of the BRC. Port holding pattern is a left orbit starting at position 1, the supercarrier. 180 degrees of turn is position 3. The maximum diameter of the orbit is 5 nautical miles. You can join the port holding orbit from any direction, but positions 1 and 3 are the preferred entry points. You commence your entry into the landing pattern when the carrier says your signal is Charlie. The next time you arrive at position 3, commence a wider descending turn to arrive at the initial point, 3 nautical miles behind the carrier at 350 knots and 800 feet. The US Navy Case 1 pattern begins by flying up the ship's right side at 350 knots and 800 feet. Within 1 nautical mile of the carrier, reduce power to idle and enter a level brake turn. At 250 knots, lower your landing gear and extend full landing flaps. On downwind heading, you should be between 1 1/4 and 1 1/2 nautical miles abeam the course line. Slow to on-speed angle of attack and descend to 600 feet. When you are abeam the LSO platform, begin a 30-degree angle of bank descending turn to roll out behind the carrier at 0.6 nautical miles and 300 feet. Approach glide slope is defined by the meatball. The meatball is an amber light mounted on the side of the aircraft carrier. When it's lined up with the green datum lights, you're on glide slope. When it's above the green datum lights, you're high. When it's below the green datum lights, you're low and should add power to climb back up to glide slope. Red flashing lights indicate a wave-off situation. You can reference your lineup from the yellow and white painted center line of the landing area. In addition, supercarrier features the long-range laser lineup system. When on center line, the light is amber. Deviations to the right of center line changes the light to green. The light begins to flash, increasing in frequency the further you go from center line. If you are lined up left, the light is red. The FA-18 Hornet is designed to land at 5 degrees of pitch in relation to the horizon. This sets the tailhook at the best angle to catch an arresting wire. Approach airspeeds can vary greatly with aircraft weight, so we use angle of attack to ensure we always touch down with the correct attitude. For the Hornet, on-speed AOA is 8 degrees, which combines 5 degrees of aircraft pitch with 3 degrees of approach glide slope. In level flight, the relative airflow matches the horizon, so if we fly at 8 degrees of pitch, we should see 8 degrees of AOA. On the left side of the HUD is the AOA indexer. A yellow circle means we are flying at on-speed AOA. We use this configuration during the Case 1 downwind leg. If we fly at 10 degrees AOA, the indexer changes to a green chevron, telling us to go faster. If we fly at 6 degrees AOA, the indexer changes to a red chevron, telling us to slow down. If we're on speed and we lower the pitch to 5 degrees, but use the throttles to maintain on-speed AOA, we will begin descending along a 3-degree glide path. Our descent rate will be roughly 700 feet per minute. We use this configuration on final approach to the carrier. The landing signal officer is able to see your approach angle of attack by way of 3 repeater lights on the nose landing gear.
Thanks for the great introduction, Jar. Let's take a look at this in a mission now. I'm going to forego the porthole and go straight into the pattern. After coming down to 350 knots, I'll engage the automatic throttle control, or ATC. Hook is down, and on the right DDI, I'm going to select the HSI and enable the TACAN and the ICLS. Punch in my TACAN channel, which is going to be 71 X-ray, and the ICLS channel, which is going to be 11. On the left DDI, I'm going to display the flight control system, or the FCS. Down to my left knee, I'm going to go ahead and hit the hook bypass to carrier, anti-skid to off. And now let's go ahead and talk to carrier and let her know that I'm inbound.
Marshall 305, marking MOMS 131.416, Angels 1, state 6.3.
Okay, let's break that down. So I'm calling Marshall, the boat. I am 305 is my side number. Marking MOMS 131, that means I am 131 degrees from her at 16 miles. My altitude, Angels 1, is 1,000 feet, and my state is my fuel state for 6,300 pounds. Let's continue.
305, Mother's weather is visibility 10 plus mile. Scattered clouds at above 10,000. Altimeter is 2993. Case 1 recovery expected BRC 309. Report see me at 10.
Okay, that's a lot of words. Let's review that. So 305 is me. Mother's telling me that the visibility is 10 plus miles. Scattered clouds about 10,000 feet. The pressure altimeter is 96.93, which is pretty close to where I already am. Case 1 recovery, which is clouds 3,000 feet or higher with 5 miles visibility, and expected BRC, which is essentially the carrier's heading, is 309 degrees, and she's telling me to let me know when I see her when I'm at 10 miles. Let's get going. Okay, so I'm going to type in 309 Cecil for that bearing, which is set on the TACAN. So now I have my course line directly to the TACAN, which is by the ship. And now I'm waiting for 10 miles, and I'll let her know when I see her at the 10-mile mark. So we confirm auto flaps, hook is down. And
305, see you at 10.
Update state, switch tower.
305, state 5.5.
Okay, so the next person we're going to talk to will be the approach controller. And we'll talk to him when we get a bit closer to him. And we're going to be descending down to 800 feet, 350 knots. But in the meantime, let's bring up the checklist, make sure I didn't forget anything, which I did, which is the dispensers. Let's turn those off. Cool. So angling myself again, just to bring myself just starboard of the carrier and down to 960 feet, keeping the ATC on at 350, one less thing for me to worry about. And I'm also reducing my HSI to 10-mile scale, and I'll explain why here in a little bit. Okay, 4.5 from the carrier. Three miles.
Tower 305, overhead Angels 1, state 5.3.
305, tower, roger, BRC 308, signal is Charlie.
Okay, let's talk about that. So approach is telling me that the carrier BRC is 308 and signals Charlie, and that means that they are ready for me to land. And let's oblige. Unpause.
305.
At this point, I'll be checking over my left shoulder and making sure that the landing area, or the box, is clear for me to land. Which it is. And I'll disengage the ATC, take over manual throttle control, again, keeping my airspeed at 350 knots, around 800 feet. And I'll break into the pattern about 1.5 miles. That gives me plenty of time to get on speed on the downwind. Okay, brake out, idle, throttle, and nice gradual pull. You know, you can do a hard pull at the beginning and then float it out later. I tend to like to do a nice gradual turn. At 250 knots, we'll bring in the brake, drop the gear, and flaps down to full. There we go. And I'm going to descend to about 600 feet. And starting to add some pitch trim up. Not pulling the stick back. And about 150, I'm gradually going to start putting some throttle back on the jet. Not too much though. And now it's a combination of throttle and pitch trim, not pulling back on the stick. And let's pause here for a second. So we can see in the bottom right corner here, we have 1.3 CSOL. And that's our distance from this BRC line we created. And that's really where we want to be, anywhere between 1.25 and 1.4 based on your gross weight. The lighter you are, the closer in you can be. And we're a pretty light aircraft, so 1.3 is looking pretty good here. Let's unpause. And at this point now, we're about 40 or 50 feet below where we need to be, so I want to increase just a little bit. So just gradually increasing the throttle, adjusting trim if I need to, but not adjusting the stick up and down. Let's turn on the controller so you can see that better. And once I see the stern of the carrier, which I do right about now, I'll initiate a 30-degree bank into the carrier while increasing throttle just a little bit because I'm losing lift in the turn. And I want to have that flight path marker just below the horizon line at about a 200 feet per minute indication on the HUD, right above the altimeter. And I'm not going to peek at the carrier. And when I'm about 90 degrees through the turn, I should be between 450 and 500 feet, which I am, about 480. Let's take a look. Turns looks good. And also now I have this horizontal bar on the HUD, and that's the glide slope marker for the ICLS. And I can see I'm a little bit below glide slope, so I'm adding a little bit of throttle to get me onto glide slope again. While again, raising it up with the throttle and trim, but never pulling or pushing back on that stick. I now have the ball tool called up, and I can see that I have a nice centered ball. And we should get the hornet ball here in a second. There it is.
305. Hornet ball, 5.0.
Roger ball.
Okay, I've uncaged the flight path marker, and I'm flying that pretty much right on the flight deck. Not too much wind, centered ball, and I'm just adjusting the throttle now at this point, really not touching the stick. Ball is dropping a little bit. I need to add a little power, not enough. So I landed a little bit short. Yeah, 2-wire, still an okay pass though. So hook up, flaps up. Let's get out of the box. And thank you for watching, and thank you for JAR for all the great support. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.